Well, NFL Week 1 was full of shocks, but what are we going to see coming from Week 2? Let's talk football. Alrighty, what's going on, everybody? My name is Antonio, and welcome back to the All Round Sports Podcast. Today, we are coming live from my new location. As you all should know, I recently moved. So for now, until I get an official set up, I am going to be using my kitchen right now for a set, so you can see a little bit of the outdoors behind me. But today we are going over my week 2 NFL predictions. Last week I was 11 of 5 of my picks. The only ones that I got wrong were the Steelers losing to the Falcons, which they won because for somehow they always do with my picks. And then they also, along with the Saints, not the Saints, Cowboys, the Cowboys, I had losing to the Browns, and heck, who didn't after all the moves that they lost this off season. Another one was the Patriots, and then along with two others that I cannot name at this exact point in time. But it was better compared to last year when I went 8-8. So it is a little bit better than what was previously taking place. So we are going to be going over each weekly prediction for week 2. I'm going to keep track of my picks all week and all year long. I'll tally them all up at the end of the season and merge them with my record from last season. So for now, I hope you guys enjoy. But for now, let's get into the predictions. But starting us off, you got an AFC East thriller. You got the Buffalo Bills going on the road to Miami to take on the Dolphins. The Bills coming out there and winning a very surprisingly close game against teams like against the team known as Arizona, which was a big surprise on how close this was, despite Marvin Harrison Jr. only catching a single reception for 4 yards because that guy's clearly a bust. They're going to be taking on the Dolphins that came back from 17-0 down last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They did not look good in the first half, but in the second half was when they really had to show up. But this matchup is going to be interesting because, as we all know, in the AFC East, it is currently a battle between these two teams. I'm not counting the Jets because I'm still not buying the hype, especially after their loss to the 49ers. But this battle is going to be a showout because Tua has only had one win against the Buffalo Bills in his career. But of course, it's not in the cold where he's going to be freezing to death. So that is a plus. I still do have concerns about the Miami Dolphins defense. It did look relatively good, but I still do have my concerns. So because of that, I am going to go with the Buffalo Bills. The Bills, I just think, are the overall better team in this matchup because the Bills have had the Dolphins number for the past years, for the past few seasons. And I think this will transpire there. And Josh Allen has proven he's not overrated and also that he can show up when he has to the most. So because of that, I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. But following that, you got the San Francisco 49ers going on the road to Minneapolis to take on the Vikings and Sam Darnold, the 49ers' former backup QB. The Niners, after absolutely exposing the New York Jets for what they truly are, I knew that this hype was just overrated because the Jets, the fact is, they're overrated, okay? They're all overrated. But, anyways, other than that, this team, the Jets just looked awful, and I'll get to them in a little bit. But the Niners, they looked absolutely amazing. They looked really good, unlike past years, which they've lost their season opener right after winning, going to a Super Bowl and then falling, which they've seen them do a lot recently. But Jordan Mason, Jordan Mason, or Jordan someone. I don't know who this exactly who this guy is. I know he was an undrafted rookie running back. So I do know his first name Jordan, not like Michael Jordan, but Jordan. Jordan Mason or someone like that. But I'm sorry, I'm not good with names. But anyways, this guy looked amazing in his debut with the 49ers. But anyways, they're going to be taking on the Vikings. The Vikings absolutely pounding the living heck out of the Giants because it's the Giants. All right, they're just a swamp right now. But this game is going to be interesting. I do still have some concerns about the 49ers because they have proven that they have to be a good team. But ultimately, they cannot beat Kansas City. Which I'm sorry, but you have to beat Kansas City in order for us to declare you a Super Bowl favorite. Which, even though you beat the Jets, which is good for you, you're still not ahead of the Lions. You're still not ahead of the Eagles. I'm sorry, but you're not ahead of any of those two teams of the NFC. Because one differential factor, they've beaten Kansas City. But, anyways, I am still going to go with the 49ers here because we still got a lot of questions surrounding the Minnesota Vikings as a whole. So, until the Vikings actually show up and beat a really good team, I am not buying the hype that's around the Minnesota Vikings for now. Now, if it was JJ McCarthy, this will all be a different story. But until then, I'm going with the Niners because they're right now the better team. And then following that, you got the Seattle mother loving Seahawks going on the road to Foxborough in a Super Bowl 49 rematch against the New England Patriots. The Seahawks absolutely showing out against the Denver Broncos in week one because it's the Donkeys. But they ultimately showed up in the second half of that game. They looked really good in that game, but I'm still really happy of what I saw as a Seahawks fan. They're going to be taking on the Patriots. That shocked everybody by beating the living heck out of the Cincinnati Bengals. Which might be a little false alarm because the Bengals normally struggle in the first week. So no big deal here. But anyways, the Seahawks defense last week, they recorded for a forced fumble, which they recovered, and actually, matter of fact, multiple, but one of them they recovered. They also had two picks against Bo Nix, or more like Bo Picks, because he threw two interceptions. But they are going to be going on the road to Foxborough against Jaron Mayo, which I had my doubts about this guy. A first year head coach, two first year head coaches, as a matter of fact. But Jaron Mayo, I'm still not buying it because it was week one. The Bengals always struggle week one. So I believe that is going to be a jumpstart kick to maybe potentially beat the team that I'm about to mention later on in the video, which I'll talk about that then. But the Patriots. I love what I saw from Jacoby Brissett and the offense, and the defense looked incredible. But I am ultimately going to go with the Seahawks here because A, I'm a Seahawks fan, and B, they're ultimately the more experienced team. You look around their roster, they got Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and also along with JSN and Zach Charbonnet and K9. You got loads of guys on that offense that can cause havoc. Their defense, however, is interesting. The defense is going to be really good, and I love the improvements that I have seen so far from the Seattle Seahawks defense. So I'm hoping that improves into the game against Foxborough, against the New England Patriots, which I'm still not buying that they are going to look good, but I would not ultimately be surprised if it was a close game because it's a really good rivalry, so I would not be surprised if it was close. But Seahawks get the win. But following that, you got the Indianapolis Colts going on the road to Lambeau Field to take on the Green Bay Packers. The Colts losing a close game against the Houston Texans last week in an effort of 29-22, which they lost. They're going to be taking on the Packers that lost their starting quarterback, Jordan Love, because the Brazil's turf is just bad up there. And also for other medical reasons. But the Colts, this team looked really good week one. So I still have this team as a sleeper team in the near future, but they have got to show up this week. You have a wide open opportunity. And the starting for the Packers will be Malik Willis, which his record as a starter with Tennessee has been 1-2. So it could go either way with the Malik Willis. But this is ultimately a concerning fact for the Packers because Jordan Love, he was the sole heart of your offense. And I know they still got loads of pieces around them as far as young guys, but you still need to show up. And because of the losses that they had because of losing Jordan Love, I am going to go with the Colts because the Colts right now look really good. Anthony Richardson looks like a top 10 quarterback right at the moment right now, if not top 15. But Anthony Richardson, I think, is just a better quarterback in this matchup. I believe the defense still has much to prove for the Green Bay Packers. And I do see the Colts getting the win because the Packers, they're just not the same without Jordan Love. But following that, you got the Los Angeles Chargers going on the road to Carolina to take on the Panthers. The Chargers, going into last week, I had the Raiders pick, but man, did Jim Harbaugh come out to play because he was showing up week one because Justin Herbert played out of his mind with a touchdown late to Ladd McConkey. And Jim Harbaugh gets his first win returning back into the NFL. And I'm happy to see that, along with a multitude of others. They're going to be taking on the Panthers, which are still one of the worst teams in the NFL today. But there is a little concern for Carolina because Bryce Young ultimately is not looking like that guy. So I think this one's pretty obvious. I am going to go with the Chargers because the Chargers defense, they looked really good last week, and their offense ultimately looked really good last week. I believe that the Chargers are going to go into Carolina, absolutely whoop their behind, just like the Saints did to the Carolina Panthers a few weeks ago, just last week. Because of that, I am going with the Chargers. Following that, you got the New York Fraudulent Jets going on the road to Tennessee to take on the Titans. The Jets just showing how frauds they are because I didn't buy it since day one, and they ultimately just look like garbage against the 49ers. You gotta win those big games. I'm sorry, but if you're the Jets, you have to win those big games. If you are really hyped to be a Super Bowl contender, you got to win those games. And Aaron Rodgers, don't even get me started with him. He looked washed on that day. He looked washed. I am going on a rant here because the Jets were so overhyped in this situation. They are in for a long season because Aaron Rodgers is not going to help you in an instant snap. Their defense looked awful. Their offense looked awful. But the Jets are frauds until proven otherwise. But they're going to be taking on the Titans because the Titans, they almost beat the Bears in a week one effort, but ultimately could not get it done because somehow Will Levis couldn't finish the job because the Bears scored more points than the Titans did in the second half. But anyways, I am going to go with the Tennessee Titans in the second half in this game because of the Jets. They're the Jets. They are 49ers. They aren't the Dallas Cowboys. They're not even the Steelers. They are the Jets. One of the most terrible, mediocre, irrelevant franchises to ever exist. And until I see it, I'm going to keep having them losing every single game because they're the Jets. No other team. They're the Jets. So because of that, I'm going with the Tennessee Titans. And following that, you got the Cleveland Browns going on the road to Duval County to take on the Jags. The Browns, after getting smacked around by the Dallas Cowboys last week, they ultimately showed up really decent, but still, Deshaun Watson is not looking like that guy, which I was hoping I was going to be wrong on this circumstance. But Deshaun Watson, the Browns are just going to have to probably move on from him by the end of next season. By the end of this season, they're going to be taking on the Jags, which they lost a game to the Miami Dolphins because of a game-winning field goal. But I still have a lot of hope for the Jags. I still do have a lot of hope because the Jaguars, their team looked amazing last week. And ultimately, they were showing up. Their team was trying to win the game. But ultimately, the Dolphins were the better team in the end. But in this case, I am going to go with the Jags at home because the Browns, they are just unproven. The Deshaun Watson, no matter how much we talk about this guy and his paycheck, eventually you're not going to have to stop getting massages and actually play football, gosh dang it. Because Deshaun Watson looked awful that game because he was probably out getting in a massage somewhere, if you ask me. But anyways, I have the Jags because Deshaun Watson apparently cannot play. And following that, you got an NFC divisional round rematch. You got the Detroit Lions hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay, they beat down on the rookie Jaden Daniels last week, but they still ultimately allowed a few points. But Baker Mayfield, this guy is baking right now. So this guy is going to be really good going into this game. They're going to be taking on the Lions that ultimately showed up in the last second to beat the ultimate rival to them right now, which is the Rams, by in an overtime win against them. And once again, the Lions are supreme over the Rams. The Lions. This team is a legitimate Super Bowl contender. They looked amazing. They filled a bunch of their gaps. Their pass rush looked good. There were some points in the game because Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are still a really good wide receiver and quarterback setup. But hopefully Puka Nacua is okay. I'll touch on them in just a little bit. But the Lions, they just look amazing. This team has the potential to go to a Super Bowl and win it. But of course, I'm not going to get too that hyped on them yet. The Buccaneers, this team looked really good last week as well. I do still have some concerns because it was the Commanders, it wasn't the Lions. So because of that, I am going to go with the Detroit Lions here. Same circumstances last time because it's ultimately in a harsh road environment that is only getting louder by the minute. And I'm hoping that the Lions wear those black alternate uniforms because when I want to see them on the players, I do want to see them on the players. But anyways, I am going with the Lions as far as this pick goes. And following that, you got the New Orleans Saints going on the road to Dallas, Arlington, to take on the Dallas Cowboys. Man, this matchup is going to be intense. But, of course, maybe it's going to be a blowout. The Saints, they looked really good last week by pounding the living skull out of the Carolina Panthers because the Panthers are just hot garbage right now. But the offense looks really good, but then again, it is a weak opponent, so we'll have to see what they do this week. They're going to be taking on the Cowboys, which, man, did they prove everybody wrong. Because the Cowboys, they looked pretty dang good, if you ask me. Because Although their quarterback, Dak Prescott, got paid to a 4-year, $240 million deal, making him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL with $60 million per year,
which is atrocious if you ask me.
because he hasn't proven he can win in the playoffs. But anyways, their defense looked amazing today. Last week, they were showing up in the living moments. They were showing up, and Eric Kendricks. I thought this guy was lost, as probably did many people, but this guy actually looked pretty good. But as we all know, the same old thing with the Cowboys. Dak Prescott is good from September, October, November, and December. But when it hits January, that's when the expectations rise, and we'll see what Dak Prescott can do in that circumstance. But I am going to go with the Cowboys on this one because they should not lose to the Saints because they are ultimately the team on top of this game. So I see the Cowboys getting the win because they're America's team, and they're going to absolutely whoop the New Orleans Saints. And following that, you got an NFC East rivalry. You got the New York Football Giants going on the road to Washington to take on the Commanders. The Giants absolutely getting the living heck beat out of them by the Vikings. They were terrible in this game. They were showed up, but Daniels didn't. But they're going to be taking on the Commanders. Jaden Daniels, this guy looks really good in his week 1 debut. He was really good in this game. And I caught this at a little sports bar because I just got internet just yesterday as I'm making this video. Because this is going to be a really good game here. Because the Giants, they've always beat down the Commanders. And I do think it could happen again. However, because of what we saw from the Vikings on them, I'm going to go with the Commanders on this one because their quarterback is much better than Daniel Jones. Because Daniel Jones, simple fact is, he's not that guy. Daniel Jones is going to have to get benched sooner or later. And I hope Drew Lock comes in and takes his place. Because they need somebody. Because Daniel Jones is certainly not that guy. That is why I have Washington getting the win. And following that, you got the Las Vegas Raiders going on the road to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The Raiders, after going into last week being hyped as a sleeper team by many people, including me, they went out there and lost to the likes of Jim Harbaugh 22-10. Their offense did not look that great. Their defense, however, looked really good. So that's a plus. They're going to be taking on the Ravens. That was a small step away from beating the Chiefs. Oh my gosh. When I saw the highlights, I was like, damn. Because Kansas City was a foot away from being beat. But the Chiefs have once again proven that they are inevitable. Now, of course, it's not all on the refs or the Chiefs alone. It was just the toe out of bounds. So, other than that, it was a good game. Anyways, the Raiders. I do still have a lot of concern about their offense. It was not as good as I originally had hoped because Gardner Minshew, he did not look that great, which I had a lot of hope in him during the season. But they've just proven that they're just a quarterback out from being a good team. In that case, I am going to go with the Ravens here because the Ravens, they are the better team in this matchup. Lamar Jackson is going to absolutely smack this team in the face because the defense, if the Raiders defense can keep it in all game, they could potentially be in for being competitive. But their offense has to show up. But that is the only part that concerns me about the Raiders. So because of that, I am going to go with the Ravens until proven other notice. And then you got the Pittsburgh Steelers going on the road to Denver to take on the Donkeys or Broncos. donkeys is what I like to call them. The Steelers, they proved everybody wrong, including me, because I had the Falcons going into the game, but I was not expecting the defense to entirely smack the Falcons right in the face. Yeah, but the Steelers, Justin Fields will start again because Russell Wilson, he apparently cannot stay healthy, which it would have been good to see Russell Wilson healthy for when he returns to Denver, just to see the fans' reaction. They're going to be taking on the Broncos, which last week they were almost able to beat the Seahawks. But the Seahawks, they ultimately have proven that they're riding more than the Broncos right now. But anyways, the Steelers, if there is anything that is going to help them get the win, it is their defense. Because time and time again, they have had mediocre offenses for the past 3 years. And somehow, Mike Tomlin leads them to a winning record. I don't know how he does it, but he leads them to a winning record. But this is an ultimate concern for when. But offense, I'm still concerned about their offense. As far as the Broncos go, their offense looked good, but it was against the Seattle Seahawks. And even though I'm a Seahawks fan, I'm not willing to admit that the Seahawks defense is elite yet because it's only one game. We have to see it in a whole new game because in 2 weeks, Seahawks will be facing Miami. But anyways, in this game, I am going to pain myself to say this. I am going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers because the Steelers, they have proven time and time again that their defense is ultimately leading the charge. And with DJ Watt showing up, they are going to have a game. And if I'm wrong on this, it's been a thing with me, all right? It's been a thing with me. I picked the team against them. They have ended up getting the win. I picked them for certain games. They've lost them. So if the Steelers lose, Denver, you're welcome because I'm certainly wrong on most of my Steeler picks, all right? I'm wrong on most of them. But Steelers, I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if the Steelers lose, Denver, you're welcome, all right? But following that, you got the Los Angeles Rams going on the road to Death Valley to take on the Cards. The Rams, after barely losing to the Lions in overtime, they showed up when they had to. I gotta give them credit. Their offense looked amazing. Their team overall was good. And this is why I never sleep on the Rams. Because they can be a thorn in anybody's side, including my team, which is, of course, the Seattle Seahawks. They're going to be taking on the Cardinals. The Cardinals, after proving how fraudulent they are, they lost to the Bills 28-31. And man, is Arizona, I am hot on them right now. Because I was constantly getting talked to by Cardinal fans all off season that Marvin Harrison Jr. was a great wide receiver. Well, what did he do in that last game, huh? What stats were there? Allow me to pull it up on the screen. He had one catch for 4 yards. One catch for 4 yards. I mean, are you kidding me? It's the most overhyped receiver I have ever seen. This guy, Marvin Harrison Jr., is one of the most overhyped receivers in the National Football League. And to prove this, the Cardinal fans were saying that he was being compared to guys like Larry Fitzgerald and Jerry Rice. Allow me to give you some history here, bud. Allow me to give you some history. I'm only going to be on this for a second. Jerry Rice, his first start, 4 catches for 67 yards. Did Marvin Harrison Jr. have that? No. Also, Larry Fitzgerald, his first start, 4 receptions for 8 yards. Did Marvin Harrison Jr. have that? Nope. Because that is how overhyped he is. I was constantly saying, can we calm down on Marvin Harrison Jr. for a second? And this is an ultimate prime example. So, Cardinal fans, But other than that, man, so I just had to say, all right. But the Rams, I can ultimately see winning this game, which is why I have them picked because of their offense and defense. They are so much more stacked than the Arizona Cardinals, which the Cardinals, they were getting so much hype to be a sleeper team. Well, they didn't look like one against Buffalo because you got to win those games. If you're really a sleeper team, you got to beat those teams every here and there. You got to beat Buffalo. And you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it like the Hail Murray because Deshaun Watson wasn't there. DeAndre Hopkins wasn't there. But other than that, I'm going with the Rams and Cardinals. You got a bust in Marvin Harrison Jr. That is final. And then the last afternoon matchup, you got the Cincinnati Bengals going on the road to Kansas City to take on the two-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to introduce them like this every single time, so get used to it. The Bengals, they were awful in week one, which is common because they normally have a slow start and then they're going to immediately snap back into attention right as the season starts to kick in. They're going to be taking on the Chiefs, which Joe Burrow is still the only quarterback currently that has ever beaten Mahomes in the playoffs. So if there's anybody that can knock Mahomes off, it's the Bengals. But I don't think that's going to happen this week because the Bengals, they just look awful. They look bad. And if they are going to do this again, what they did against the Patriots, you can kiss their hopes goodbye because the Bengals, I do respect them. But with this team, you just never know. You just never know because the Bengals, they always have had this slow start of things. But I am going to go with the Chiefs in this one because the Chiefs are just inevitable, as I have stated earlier. They have just proven that no matter what happens in the regular season, they're ultimately going to go into the playoffs and absolutely whoop your behind because that's what they do. Because of that, I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm hoping I'm wrong on this. And then you got a Sunday night matchup between two top picks of last year's draft, the last 2 years' drafts. You got the Chicago Bears going on the road with Caleb Williams to H-Town to take on the Texans and CJ Stroud. The Bears, after getting a week one win in spite of their special teams and their defense, they ultimately came back and won against the team known as the Tennessee Titans because Titans, they're just not that good right now. They're going to be taking on the Texans. That showed exactly why they are Super Bowl contenders. And their three top receivers all made big plays. Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and Stephon Diggs. And Joe Mixon, that guy had a day. He was showing up when the team needed him the most. And their defense looked really good too, although they did give up some points to the Colts. But it is a divisional opponent. But this is going to be a really close game, I feel, because Caleb Williams, he ultimately struggled. I think he was growing a bit because he's adjusted from college, moving to the NFL. So I believe he will get better this week, but hopefully he does, or else the Bears are totally screwed. Because the Texans, they are ultimately the definition of a Super Bowl contender right now. They are really good. Their offense played really good last week, and their defense ultimately showed up, which is why I am going to go with the Texans because the Texans, they are right now the better team in this matchup overall. Because right now, CJ Stroud is a lot better than Bryce Young, if you ask me. Because Bryce Young has just been terrible in Carolina. But I am going to go with the Texans because the Texans are just more stacked in this circumstance. And then, last but not least, a Monday night showdown between the birds. You got the Atlanta Falcons going on the road to the city of brotherly love to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Man, the Falcons. I just gotta say one thing. What the hell happened out there? I mean, seriously, I'm gonna bleep this out when I get the chance. But what in the Sam happened? Because how do you lose? Oh my gosh, Kirk Cousins, what the heck happened? Oh my gosh, Kirk Cousins. This guy, I've been hot on this, and I've not been on YouTube that much doing many of my videos because I haven't had internet. But I'm about to go off on this brother right now. Kirk,
What the heck was that?
because explain me this. Explain me this. How do you not show up? All right? How do you not show up? Because, get this, you had Drake London, you had Kyle Pitts, you had Ray McLeod, you had Tyler Algier, you had Bijan Robinson.
And you couldn't be the Steelers!
The Steelers' offense is terrible. It was right there for the taking. All your defense was doing was forcing them to field goals. What the Sam Hill wasn't doing? Because I do not understand this. You were overhyped to be one of the best offenses in the NFC South. Well, what the heck was that? Because somebody explain that to me. How do you not show up? I mean, Kirk better get better this game. He had better perform this game. And if he doesn't, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. Because the Cardinals, I was hyping them. Many people were hyping them. But this, Matthew Judon didn't even play a factor. Justin Simmons didn't even play a factor. Their defense didn't play a single factor because they couldn't stop the run. What the heck were you doing? But anyways, sorry. I just had to get that off my chest. But anyways, they're going to be taking on the Eagles. I'm sorry. I had to get that off my chest. But anyways, the Eagles, they beat down the Packers in Brazil, ultimately, unfortunately, causing an injury to Jordan Love. This was a bad situation for the Packers. But because of what happened to the Falcons last week, I am going to go with the Eagles on this one because I am still. And if Kirk Cousins does not perform, I'm going to lose my mind. If Kirk Cousins doesn't perform, I'm going to lose it. But, anyways, this is going to be a good matchup. I hope it's closer this time, Kirk. I hope it's closer this time. Well, anyways, that is my pick for this week. I'm going with the Eagles, and I'm hoping I may do better or equal what I did last week, and hoping I get most of them right. But let me know in the comments what you guys think down in the comment section below. What team do you guys have picked for the week 2 matches? Let me know down in the comment section below. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to smash that like button down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll catch you all in the next one. Ciao for now.